Princess Anne shock, how extramarital affair threw Queen's servant into limelight. Princess Anne had an extramarital affair that threw the previously unknown Queen's personal servant into the limelight. The Princess Royal was seeing the Queen's equerry, Commander Timothy Lawrence, while she was still married to Captain Mark Phillips. She had been visiting his home in Winchester for some time when their affair was suddenly exposed. Love letters from Timothy were stolen from Anne's briefcase inside Buckingham Palace in 1989, and that's when everything changed. Harry Arnold, royal reporter for The Sun, spoke to 2002 Channel 4 documentary The Real Princess Anne about the effect this must have had on the quiet Timothy. He said, "Until this story was printed, nobody had ever heard of Timothy Lawrence. He was this guy, a bachelor, living a lonely life in the West Country in a small flat, suddenly hurled into the limelight and the whole panoply of the royal family. It must have been a terrible shock for him. Timothy was a shy man who kept himself to himself, and all of a sudden he was the focus of the world's media." Scotland Yard launched an investigation into the case of the stolen letters, which involved 4 months of interviewing almost everyone in the palace and taking around 500 people's fingerprints. However, the police were unable to conclusively identify the culprit. The fragility of Anne's marriage had been exposed and she quickly separated from Mark. Then, in April 1992 they divorced and Anne was able to come out about her relationship with Timothy. They had their first official outing together in May 1992 and then married in December. Many people noticed the similarities between Anne's two husbands, both in their looks and personality. Former Daily Express royal reporter Ashley Walton said, "They're both quiet men. They're similar types, tall, handsome and quiet. You can't imagine they're very exciting, either of them." Royal reporter James Whittaker suggested that neither could cope with Anne very well, due to her strong personality. He said, "She's a strong lady, I can't think of anybody who could really cope with Anne very successfully, and Mark and Tim are certainly two who can't. But I can't think of anybody on earth could, really. Who would want to take Anne on as their wife? I can't think of anybody." Nevertheless, it must have been particularly difficult for Timothy to be thrown from a life that was very low profile to one that was in full glare of the media. He went from a quiet life in Winchester to having the paparazzi outside his front door. Despite this, according to Detective Chief Superintendent Roy Ram, who was in charge of the investigation into the stolen letters, Timothy's only concern was trying to protect Anne. This would indicate that their relationship is one of love, backed up by the fact they have remained together for the past 17 years.